Okay, so we've agreed that our dogs might interrupt, but that's all fine.
Exactly. It's dog-friendly territory here.
Beautiful. So this is early for me because it's 9 in the morning.
I know, I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I think it's great. And so this is Carollyne Corner,
Mhm.
coming to us from Switzerland. Am I right? But you're
Yes.
German, Swiss German?
I'm Swiss. I'm Swiss, but like I don't know if you know, but we have 4 languages here in Switzerland.
I
And
do a little bit because
yeah, sorry. I come from the Swiss German part, so my main language would be Swiss German.
got you. Got you. I have another friend who is also Swiss German.
Oh,
So I
okay.
am a bit familiar. They live overlooking Lake Geneva.
Oh, that's
Very
beautiful. That is such a beautiful city. And of course, they are in the French part. So she must speak French then.
Yes. Well, they're in Chèvre.
Gèvres. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, I
And
know.
he is the one who's Swiss German, although I think she finally, after a million years, was able to get a Swiss passport.
Not so easy, I know.
Not so easy. Yes. You must be married forever and jump through hoops anyway.
Yes, and then you have to go to all this testing and have to know. I'm sure I would probably do much worse than anybody who's preparing for those tests. You really have to be subtle in history and all those different politics and all those fields, how it works here in Switzerland. Yeah, they don't make it easy. I
Wow.
know. I have a friend who planned to be a Swiss citizen, and it wasn't easy for him.
Wow. And my boyfriend is Brazilian, and he had to do all of that to become an American citizen. And so, yeah, he probably knows more than I do about American history. We who are just born here are spoiled and lucky.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah. So we have a really interesting, so we've never spoken before. I just want to say that to the world. Yeah, we found each other through my friend Fiona. And Fiona and I were in Sarah Ashman's class, in her branding class.
Mirror brand.
Mirror brand, yes. So, at the end of the day, I think that this little YouTube channel is going to be called something like, 2 degrees of separation. because that's what it is, right? It's like we all know each other and you have another friend. We have a friend in common on Facebook, my friend Wafa.
Oh, you know Wafa?
How the heck do you know Wafa? So Wafa is from Morocco, but lived in Sag Harbor for many, many years. So
I know. I didn't know. I had no idea. Well, that is because I love her. I love her. She now lives in Washington. And I actually thought, Sarah lives in Washington from Mirror Brand. So I actually thought I should introduce the two of them. Well, isn't that funny? I had no idea.
Huh. Well, you want to hear crazy. This is crazy.
Yes.
On Christmas Day a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I got who sent me the message first? My aunt sent me a message and said, I met your friend Wafa. My aunt was in the airport in Vietnam. She said, I met your friend Wafa. I was like, ow. They were standing in a line together, going from maybe Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City or something like that. And Wafa, she just talks to anyone. And my aunt is the same way. And my aunt has been a world traveler forever. She actually has a house in Laos and built a school in this small village in Laos or rebuilt a school there.
That's inspiring.
And they met traveling on Christmas Day, and hi, you look American, or whatever it was. And I think it was something like, where are you from? Oh, it's a little town you never would have heard of called Sag Harbor. And my aunt says, oh, my niece lives there. And of course, this town is so small that everyone knows everyone.
Okay.
So
well,
yeah,
that is amazing. Sorry, that's now Coco saying hi. That is amazing. Wow, the world seems sometimes so small, doesn't it? you meet random strangers, you start talking, and then you find out that you have a friend in common, or that, and then it's like all over the world.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful how that works.
Yes. Well, and then, anyone in my family will tell you that I'm that person who will talk to anyone, anywhere, the random person in line, or yeah, here you are.
Just like me.
Because I think it's so great. Like you meet the most amazing people, you hear the most amazing stories. I believe in synchronicity. And
travel.
Mhm.
That's exactly why I love to travel.
Mhm.
It's I mean, of course, it's about the people, or the country you go to, the history. I love history. I love seeing and reading about things. But then it's all about the people. And it's not just the people who live actually in that country, but just the encounters that you have. And I remember my husband and I went to, our honeymoon was in America. So it's 25 years ago now. And we flew into New York, and we sort of did a tour in America, and we ended up in New Orleans. And we met there a lovely, lovely family, or just they just retired. I think he was a doctor, and she was originally from Hawaii. Her father worked there as a doctor, and they were about 65, 70 years old, and we were just married. We were a young couple. And then we met them there, and we started talking, and they were so lovely. And we still write each other. He sadly passed away, but we still write each other Christmas cards. And I get like letters with photos of her family and what's happening. And it's 25 years ago.
25 years later.
5 years later, and it's so heartwarming. And that's what's for me the most interesting, meeting people and just start talking and exchange in general. And that's just adding so much. I think that's why I love to travel. It's about the people.
That's so beautiful. Wow.
Yes, isn't that beautiful? She lives in California, and she's now bound on a wheelchair. But just to see her journey, I mean, and actually they came, I have to say, they came to Switzerland, to our city of Zug. They came there, and sort of we met together for a few days, and then they traveled on in Europe. So it was just beautiful to have that experience of meeting them and changing and learning from them, and seeing how they view the world. And it was one of the first times that my husband and I traveled so far.
Wow.
So
The idea of coming to America for a honeymoon. Like, that's so funny. Not where I would go, but yeah. That's funny. Wow. So I'm curious. So have you always lived in Switzerland?
Yes. Oh, well, I mean, there was a part of my life where I lived in England, in London.
Okay.
And it was definitely one of the best years of my life before I came back. And then, of course, I knew my husband since we were children. We went to school together. So we know each other for a very, very long time. But we came together, and of course, then life was beautiful. And I'm happy here where I am. But I really, Switzerland really was too small for me in my teens and or early 20s. Mm-hmm. And I sort of fled to London, just to be in a more open, in a more colorful space, I guess. I wanted to have, and New York was my end goal, that would have been my next thing. But then, there were reasons I had to go back. But I lived about 3 years in London, and it was a crazy time. It was, but also an extremely enjoyable time.
Yeah. So where was I saw the film of the retreat that you had and thought, now that's a beautiful place.
Oh, yes, it is.
Was that in England or Switzerland?
No, that was in England.
In England. And how did that happen? How did you, so explain what the retreat was, because, I know a little bit about what you do, but was that your first retreat? Or was that not your first retreat, but the first one you filmed for the because obviously you invested a lot in thinking about the visuals and creating you know, somebody had to film it, somebody had to photograph it. People were styled, like I could tell what was going on. And it was
Yes, a lot of work went into there. It was beautiful. It was also a beautiful experience. It had to be. And actually, people came from Australia. Like we had two girls from Australia, which were wonderful, from Event Head, and they just been just crazy, you know, flying in. And they went actually to Scotland, because one of the girls had roots in Scotland, so she wanted to experience that. And then they came down to Goodnestone, which is in Kent. And you know, three lovely ladies flew in from the US, and so we all melted in this crazy beautiful space. But how I found it was the first retreat, and so it was quite a thing to organize that. I will have to give a big shout out to Riza, who was the photographer and video filmer. And she did a beautiful job, and she was so overworked. I took one of the girls you see in the video has very long blonde hair, and she does the yoga. That's my daughter, Michelle. And so Riza is her friend. She's a very beautiful photographer and artist. So my daughter, who also is a yoga teacher, actually took her by side, and each day they had to like rejuvenate her, because she was so tired of all this filming and photographing, and you know, it was so much going on. And then also she would sit down and listen in to some of the teachings, because she was interested. So it was a very long day for her, and you can relate to her. I'm sure you do. So she had like work day and night, and she had beautiful conversations with Sarah, coming back to her from Mirror Brand, because Sarah would keep on giving her tips. And so it was quite exhausting for her and for everybody. I remember that, I think at 4 o'clock in the morning, I recorded for my husband. He kept on calling me. But some of the ladies would wake up very early, and I wanted to be there for them. And then some of them didn't go to bed, Sarah being one of them. So my days got longer and longer and longer, and I just had no time to talk to my husband. And I think I got up at 4 and I just recorded something for him. I was like, I'm alive, you know, nothing bad happened. I call you in a few days, it's all fine. But it was,
I've been on jobs like that, where you just had to like give someone the message that you're alive, because you don't have a minute.
Yeah. And it's crazy to hold the space energetically as well. I wanted for them to have a good experience, and I had to meet all of those different women where they were at when they came. So we had to equalize that energy as well. And some came from, you know, not having worked with me or only a little bit. And some came from knowing me well, knowing their, having done the work and having done some processing already. And so it was also trying to equalize that energy.
And why were they coming? What were they? What was the purpose of the retreat?
The purpose of the retreat was definitely to give them space to handle their own energy and input. And I say energy, I mean literally energy, the energetics, but I also mean the way how much you put into your life and your work, and to find a balance there or heal certain things. We women always come from, I feel, or at least the women that tend to come to me are definitely women who want to achieve something, maybe have already, they're loving what they do, they maybe even found their purpose and are thriving there, but then it's hard to keep a balance, and sometimes they're exhausted or feel a bit shifty, feel overworked, or they come and they totally feel that what they do, it's okay, but there is something more they want to go and explore, and they feel that calling or that shiftiness, but they don't really know how to go about it.
So you were bringing them back to a place where they could focus on self-care and balancing, like, I love to do this, but I'm being pulled this other way.
Yes, well, it's self-care is definitely a word that will come to my mind, or maybe soul wellness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just we all are. We grew up in society with families and friends added to the picture, and then we had our own life experiences. Everybody was adding their own thoughts, their own past. That helped us raise and form, but sometimes that would also limit us. Right. And so what I do believe in, and I think that is the key to be living a meaningful, successful, but also extremely happy life, is that you can eliminate and heal those parts that are not part of your true self. And so that's why I say wellness for the soul. So just let your soul grow and be who you truly are. And therefore you sometimes have to look back and find patterns or blocks that have been part of your upbringing, without putting blame on anybody, because they had their own upbringing and their own difficulties, and they've been raised in a society that was at the time what it was, and they probably grew out of that. And so that's definitely a big part of my work, is helping people to see what's true, what's them, helping them to listen to their true voice, and with that, of course, finding their purpose in life. And sometimes it's tweaks, sometimes somebody can be feeling shifty and unhappy and feeling a pull, but then it's not about totally changing your whole life and career. And sometimes that is, but often it's just tweaking it into another direction. Yeah. And so finding that and giving that space. And when we go about our day-to-day life, it's just difficult to really take ourselves out and truly dig deeper. And it's also a place where people can dig deeper and have the space for that. And energetic, it was just so funny how I found the house. And definitely that's something which, my big goal would be to create a place, probably in England, because I just love the energy there with all the ley lines, and this energy is just ancient, old, infused wisdom. and it's energetically, it's just, England has just some really amazing places. And it will be definitely my goal to create such a space for people to go in and just enjoy that wellness for the soul.
So you're saying like to own such a place and let it be your house. Come to my house and we'll play together and do these.
Exactly. I mean, own it, rent it, whatever. But like that would be because to hold the energy and to really make it into a beautiful space, energetically and visually, it would be beautiful to really be able to take care of that space, because it's energetically big work to keep everybody sort of synchronized on the same path, get them where they are. So it would be great to have a space where that's already there. So you just can actually only look for the people who come. But I would love to have that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was just thinking this because, I spent 20 years being a wedding photographer all over the world. And I used to go to places like that all the time to photograph weddings. And what you're saying to me makes me think, we, especially, I think, older women, but lots of people, would love to have these gathering places again, because weddings in magical places are a thing, right? Like
isn't it the most beautiful thing to do, like work with in wedding venues and see people loving each other, and that's such a beautiful thing. Right. And they get less and less when you get older, like,
Yes.
There are more divorces than weddings.
We need more of those magical experiences in these, uplifting places where everyone's sort of focused on love and gathering and community. And, a wedding is so easy because the storyline is so simple and clear. And everyone's on that storyline for that couple. And then little stories happen on the side and other things happen. I mean, I got married in a castle, medieval castle overlooking Florence. And people still talk about it. And I'm divorced. I've been divorced since 2001. And wedding was in 1995, and people still talk about it.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. I love Florence. We used to go there with my parents. My mother would go with me every spring. It's just such a magical city. Did you? I'm sure you did go to Siena too.
Oh, yes. Yes. I actually briefly lived in Italy the man I married lived in Milan. He's
Oh,
British. And as soon as we got married, then we moved to Moscow.
right, right. Wow, that was
The polar opposite.
yeah.
um, but yes, I love this idea of I love ancient. I love that you say sort of ancient and sacred gathering places for people who are older, wiser, and focused in a different way. I had a great conversation a couple years ago with Lee Harris, who is speaks about energy and intuition and things like that. And he said to me, Tanya, could you maybe give 15% less in everything that you're doing? Specifically, like number of photos or, like energy toward a thing, to basically hold a little more for yourself. And I feel like that's something you would tell people. That
Yeah, I love that. And not just, yes, and not just the amount, because it's always about the quality, isn't it? I mean, not the quality of photos or of object or whatever people do, but the quality of when you do it, how you feel, and you're not getting drained. Like Riza did when she filmed. I didn't even know what was going on because I was teaching and I was giving for her interviews there for courses, and there was so much going on, and then she photographed other people, so I didn't really get how much she was working, but that's exactly what I wouldn't have wanted for her to happen. Just, and then enjoy more of half the quality of being there, and I think that's being present. I think in life is the most beautiful if you are wise enough, and often it's the wiser older women who get to really think about the quality time they spend. And when you're young, I remember, I had two children, working, juggling all of that. It gives you such a peace of sanity if you can actually be in the moment, be with your child and play with it without thinking of all the to-do lists and what you have to, do in the next few hours, but just be present there. And I learned that thankfully early on. And I was told and teach that by an older woman, by the way.
An older woman told you to teach that?
And then she teach me, be present, do what you do with all your energy, and be there and not think about the next thing, but think about that when you arrive there. And that will add quality to your life. And it had. I've been told that before I was even 30, and I really tried to integrate that into my life. Whatever goes on, to try to be present at the moment, and then be present again after that moment has passed, and not hang on to, because that's the next thing. If you have children and work, you of course always would be thinking maybe of, how does my child do? Is it bad that I have to leave now? Or all of those conflicts. And they don't have to be around children. They can be around anything. If you have a few projects going, not think about these other two projects, but just be present where you are and give your best and enjoy that. And then also give yourself time and rest. Because of course that's where you rejuvenate and reconnect with your intuition. And you talked about him. I have to Google him. I told you he's in my email. He's mentioned to me now twice. I have no idea who he is, but you wrote about that. You had an interview with him, didn't you, or a podcast, right?
We will probably record something. I have been photographing Lee.
You will. Yeah, exactly. And my VA in England, he's English, right?
Yes.
My VA in England mentioned him just one day before you wrote that email to me.
Ah.
Oh, that's actually a sign I have to really definitely Google.
It is a sign,
yes, I'm sorry. But I think coming back to if he's teaching intuition and all of that, adding this layer to your life. And that's definitely another thing that it's a mission to teach. And I feel that it's very important for people to integrate, is to work with their intuition, which can be very close to inspiration. And especially, you know, where you come from, where you do creative work, to be open to inspiration is already the doorway to go into real intuition work. And that makes life just so much easier. And I've been growing up, and this was all intact. Like, my intuition was working, and I was like maybe hearing and seeing things that people wouldn't. I didn't know that, you know, because I didn't know other people's reality. I just thought that's normal. And it took a while till I guess that people actually can function in different ways. But as a child, that was just my reality. And so to integrate that for people who don't know this or didn't, sort of, you always have that, and you always have the capability of doing so. But it's like closing down one of your senses. And you don't have that for nothing. You have that as an additional, it's beautiful to have, you know, the possibility to hear beautiful music and sound. And it's nice to smell a good dinner. It's dinner time here, and I start to smell my neighbors cooking, I guess. And you see and you look at beautiful things. That's just the senses you use, and that makes life very beautiful. And it adds layers and layers of experiences for yourself. And the intuitive side of it is just another layer of that, experiencing life and also making it easier for people who don't see or don't hear. Life is more difficult. They have to overcome more obstacles. And so it's the same with closing down your intuition.
Well, so that's super funny that you would mention these things, because I have no sense of smell.
Oh,
I had an accident, and I believe next Wednesday is
mm-hmm.
the 30th anniversary of the accident.
Oh.
And I'm working with a medical intuitive on shifting it, because I think the reason I lost my smell had something to do with protecting myself. I mean, yes, it happened because I slipped and fell and hit my head, but I think it's something older. But people used to say, oh, well, if you can't smell, and as you know, if you can't smell, you can barely taste. Does that mean your vision is sharper? Because that is another thing that happens. Like, say you lose your eyesight, other things become sharper.
I love it.
I mean, I don't know that my intuition got sharper, but then exactly what you said, I didn't know what I had all along, and I didn't realize that it was always a part of my photography. And I mean, I literally can, I speak to people and I start seeing visions of what I should be photographing. And when I work with Lee, the interaction is shocking, because I will be thinking something like, oh, he needs to move his coat like that much.
And he does
and he'll do it.
Yeah.
And I'll say, what are you doing? And he's like, I was trying to tap into your thoughts. And I was like, wow, you are the only person who's ever done that. And it's so magical. But then it's happened with other people. And I realized there are people who are so sensitive that the play and the dance it's a different experience of working with someone who is awake to their intuition.
Isn't that beautiful to co-create together then?
Oh, it's fantastic.
And that's what the magic about the intuition is. It's integrating that into your life and bringing that magic into and the ease. It's so much easier, isn't it?
So much easier. It takes less out of me. So I've noticed when I work with super intuitive people, two things happen. One is they trust me just implicitly. So the trust level goes way up. And then as we're working together and I'm doing a thing, both of us can tell when it's not working.
Yeah.
So we'll do a thing and we're like, yeah. No. Or, we'll do it and we'll think it's great. And then we'll look at the picture and say, nope, that's not it. And then we just move on. And
Yeah.
it's completely different from, say, a less intuitive shoot where mainly a person's worried about, oh, my hair. Oh, I look fat. Oh, I look this. Oh, I don't like how I blah. That's more of like like surface level. Like if you're blocked by the surface and the appearance of a thing, you can't get to the intuitive level because you can't see past that you don't like your hair.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know
I
what
love the thing that you said about trust. When you're intuitive, of course, you learn to trust in your intuition,
I
and
mean?
that's the whole point. To live more in that space where you trust that something beautiful comes out of it. So you don't have to actually look at the hair or worry about the background that much, because you trust. First of all, you said they trust you, so you trust in you because they pick up that you're a great photographer, but they also trust generally in their intuition and life. So it's a whole different way of living, and that will reflect in any part of your life. They will be more trustworthy because they know when they meet people who to trust and who not to trust. So they don't have to overthink that. It's about your health. You will know that when you feel off, that you really have to go and look at that, and you'll trust your inner voice. So that's when you live a life where you embrace all of those senses, and the sixth sense will give you more trust in life. And that's such a relaxed, if I say relaxed way of living.
Yes. Yes.
um,
And, a couple of my friends call it trusting the hell yes. Right? Like if
yeah,
it's not a hell yes, it's just a no.
yeah,
And
yeah,
because the pull of a yes is intuitive and super strong. Um, so that's a beautiful thing. I've been watching several people, and it's funny, I feel like I've been watching it because I needed to see it reflected back to me, but I've been watching a bunch of people in different groups say no to things, like no to this client, no to that project, no to this person who treated me a certain way.
isn't that empowering?
Yes. And I've been watching it thinking, wow, yes, don't forget the power of no is so strong and so important, especially to women who are constantly saying yes to
Yes,
everything.
exactly. I just wanted, it reminds me of a time when I was working, and my boss was this super interesting guy. He lived an extremely special life. He came from a very influential and very rich family. He was in politics. He was very driven. He wanted to really change something in the world, but he had the habit of liking a drink or two at night and not really getting up in the morning. So I was at the time already mother, and I had a child that had a very different life to his. And so he would appear just before I wanted to leave. And he would have all these wonderful and great bright ideas that he probably thought about the night before, but I just had a limited amount of time and I needed to pick up my child. And for years I would sort of, for a few years I would work there and really always try to say yes and be sort of, because I also loved the ideas or whatever the work he came with in, and the thoughts he had, and I really respected that. But he didn't respect my time at all. So after a while, it was before I had my second child, I stopped working, and we would hire someone else. And she was a little bit older than me, definitely older. She worked for in places like that before, and she just came in and she would leave 11:45 and say, it's lunchtime, I'm going. And I'm like, oops. And he was like, oops, because nobody ever told him anything like that. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do, and that's who I will be. this is just saying no. It's just so powerful, and it shocks, but it's like, why not? You know, I'm here from 7:30 onwards, please. You know, I give you that time and that space, just respect that. I was very young at the time. I was 25 maybe, but it just teach me how I admired how she acted. And I thought, that's how I'm going to act and how I want to be and live my life. Just set boundaries and say no. And as you said, often women, as women, I think definitely from our generation, I hope I raised our child differently, our daughter, but still, I think to accommodate, to say yes, that's just a trade we often go into, a road that we take, and it takes us time to learn to really respect our own boundaries, because it's about us in the first place. It's not about them overstepping. I mean, that's the thing that you can then handle, but you have to just first do it for yourself and really know. And that comes with age, I guess, for men and women. Just know what you want and know what you don't want, and then be able to say no.
Yeah. It's funny how kids confuse that too, because you want to say yes all the time. And yeah, there are times and places where getting to a no is hard, and some of it's not optional. You know, you're on call. You're on call 24/7.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
your
I,
time is yours.
I do remember when I had my daughter very early, and it wasn't planned. So when I was pregnant, I started to think how I would like to raise her, and what kind of values I want to give her, and what I would like to teach her, and what kind of woman, mother figure I would like to be. And I reflected back on my own childhood, and I just wanted to be always encouraging and give her a lot of positivity and value, and tell her that she's enough, whatever she does, and so on. And she was like the perfect child, which was really scary in a way, because she was always like, she never would talk back. She would be always so reasonable. And looking back, even that was a problem. Even if you try to be very accommodating and positive and empowering, that can shield the child from reality, because reality is just different. And the world sometimes speaks back to you. And sometimes there are grumpy people, and sometimes there is no space to bring yourself into that. And so I thought, like, what I thought would be the perfect thing of growing up, because I probably felt I missed that myself, I overdone it. And it's funny how the pendulum goes from one side to the very other side, and actually it's a middle road. And I do believe with my son, with our son Louis, he's now 21.
My son is also 21.
Really?
Yes.
So born 1999?
98. So
Oh.
I'm about to turn 22.
Ah, okay. So one day, actually, your wedding is also 1 year apart. We married 1996. So you said 1995.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that with him, I had more of a, I already saw my own upbringing, and I saw the upbringing that they're 8 years age gap between them. And so I try to do things differently, but it's always it's a hard job to really raise a child, because you want to do such a good job, and each one is individual. Each needs a very different treating. But I think one of the things will be for me to tell a young mother to keep that intuition alive, because we are all born with that. So to not be scared if a child says something that you cannot see or not feel or not hear. Definitely that would be something. And then just empower them in any possible way, and see who they truly are, instead of what you might like them to be, or who you'd like them to be. And they might be very different to you, and to just respect that. And
Well, I had to learn quite young that also my child can be my teacher.
Oh,
He
yes,
is
of
my
course.
teacher. And I will never forget the day he was, well, I don't know, I don't even know what age he was, but he was super young. And he just looked at me, and he was after pre-K, because I know he learned this in his pre-K. And he said, "Mom, don't yell at me like that."
Oh, yeah, yeah. But a
And
great
his
teacher.
teacher is to this day a very good friend of mine. In fact, we invited her to come to his graduation. There were three of us. We called ourselves his three mothers
Oh, that's so sweet.
because it took three of us.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, of course.
but because I was yelled at as a child a lot. I was hit. I was yelled at. Um, there was a lot of stuff that made me a silent person. So to hear my son speak up and say, "You can't treat me that way,"
Yeah.
I was horrified to the point of tears. I actually started crying when he said that. And I thought, oh my God, I'm doing to my child exactly the thing that I don't want. Because I always say, people are either exactly like their parents or exactly the opposite, because of that pendulum
Mhm,
thing that
mhm,
we're all trying to navigate.
mhm, mhm.
But this desire for voice, and this desire to find a voice, has been, for me, a lifelong mission that started with a lot of silencing. But I have this son who's so beautifully able to, speak up for himself. And now he tells me stuff all the time. And like, "Mom, relax, Mom." Yeah,
Isn't that beautiful?
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And how beautiful it is that he actually kept his voice. And that's, how much good you've done to him, because he obviously was able to get you in the moment where you probably didn't realize you were yelling, that he was already raised by you in a way that he knew, I have a voice, I matter, and I can speak out. That
Yeah.
is so beautiful.
Yeah. And I love that also that teacher was teaching yoga to these little 4 and 5 year olds. So she was teaching yoga and meditation to these little kids, and he does it to this day, because he's so, he stays in his body. He is in his body. He was an amazing rock climber. He's a surfer. So those two sports are very much like your body in nature.
Mhm, mhm.
And yeah, those lessons have been,
How beautiful is that, that they teach yoga like that's 15 years ago, right? That's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that was amazing. And she was just doing it because she was into it, and she was like, "Well, I like it, so I'm going to teach the kids." And
I'll have to tell my daughter that, because she's a yoga teacher, but she also is a teacher for well, I don't know how you say that in America, college students, right? So 14 year olds,
mhm.
14,
You should be
15 year
teaching
olds.
5 year olds. That would be amazing.
She here in Switzerland, you either study one to, I think you say grade, first to sixth grade,
Mhm.
or then later on, like the years after that,
Right.
because it's a whole different way of studying. And she thought that she would be, well, I think she already is in her job now too, that she's probably wanting to do more. And
Mm.
I think she starts to study now, or does a major, you say major? No, what do you do?
Major.
The bachelor is the major. Yeah.
A bachelor is the bachelor's degree. So that
Yeah.
just means what you get at the 4 years. But
Yeah.
the major is the concentration of your study.
Okay. So it's another 2 years. Is that the same for you too?
No, um,
Oh, a master degree, right? Is that
a master's. Yes, that's different. Yeah.
she has a master in her studies now with being the teacher of college kids?
Mhm.
And now she does another master, but I think that will go more into the direction of probably changing schooling systems. So she will want to go deeper into change, not just in a day-to-day job, but bring that on in a bigger way.
Beautiful.
So I have to tell her that your son had yoga like 15 years ago. I have to tell her.
Yeah.
She's
I mean, he
lucky
just
because she's
have a
also
little patio outside here, and he just goes outside and does it himself. He knows when he needs it. And there was
yeah.
a time a year ago when he was struggling. He was feeling, anxious, a lot of anxiety and depression and some other things. And I was asking in a bunch of my different groups that I'm parts of, lots of moms my age, lots of moms with kids that age. And I was honestly shocked by the answers when I was asking women for help. And so many said therapy and drugs. So many. And I didn't know how to say, just no, like no to the drugs. Therapy maybe, but honestly, I feel like, and this is where, my intuition was like, no, that's not my child. And that might be great for your child or another child. And I get it. There are people who depend on these drugs for life. That's not my child. And it wasn't until someone said, oh, is it possible he's an empath? And then I just went like,
Oh, okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so he's taking on energies from other people, and he doesn't know how to set these boundaries. And
Open. Yeah, that's such a, I think it's what I teach at the very beginning of people working with me, and of just the teaching I told you, I think the fundamental thing is that you heal the past and so forth, but it's also, I think, the fundament of, if you go and tap into energy, the fundamental thing is to know how to navigate that and how to be shielding yourself, how to stay within your own energy, how to not be affected. And that doesn't mean that you don't care, because empathizing with someone is not about taking it all in and pulling yourself down. It's about staying in your own energy, trying to stay in as high vibration as possible, but then feel the empathy towards someone. And then you're also in a place where you can help and can help make the change.
right.
Instead of going down that rabbit hole and being just sucked in. And I think right now, because I had so many people reach out to me right now with everything that goes on, with starting with the pandemic, 2020 just showed us that nothing is for granted. It's just
Including life itself.
including life itself. And
right.
and then the Black Matters movement, of course, has to be voiced for so many hundreds of years, and it has to be addressed. And it's so healthy that this comes all up now, not how it came up, but just that it comes up, and that people reflect on their own lives and what they do. And it's a draining and it's a heavy energy, and lots of people who are empathizing can feel that they're going downhill from here, or that they feel this heaviness and they don't know how to overcome it. And before you can take action, I think taking action is always the best thing, and standing up for other people. But it's also about nourishing yourself first and say, hey, look, now, if I want to be of service, if I want to do change, be the change. And for the pandemic, I mean, it's going on. And I know here in Switzerland, we really have a different, a little bit of a different scenario right now. We're very lucky that we have shut down everything very quickly. Of course, you know that Switzerland shares a long border with Italy. Having lived in Milan, you will know that. So we have also a lot of people actually Italians working in Switzerland, in the south part, where we also speak Italian, where our language is Italian. And so people would from the north, from Bergamo and all those places where the infection was so devastating. Lots of those people, 70,000 people, work in Switzerland and live in northern Italy. And so we didn't close the border quickly enough, I guess, for the south part of Switzerland. And that was definitely a problem. And the military had to go in and had to help build hospitals. But we were hit very, very hard. also because, of course, you know that Switzerland is famous for skiing and skiing holidays. And that was in February. So people would come in and come to ski holidays here, and it would spread unknown and unseen. And we were hit hard, and we had more than 1,000 new infections per day. So for a country that is only 8 million people strong, that's a lot. But we were down to 15. The lowest was 9 new infection. So all what we did and all what the government imposed, and we never had a real lockdown. It was all it was they told you what to do, and people just done it without forbidding it, like France had to do, or Spain had to do, and then Italy had to do. So anyway, we are now at the point where we have between maybe 10, 15, maximal 30 new infections per day. And of course, in such a small country, tracing is more possible. And we want to, keep that number down, and we hope to keep that number down. But I know that in other parts of the world, I don't know if you hear today, with China had an outbreak in Beijing. And so they are in lockdown there again. I know that in America there are rising numbers. And so we are not over. Here it feels a bit more relaxed. However, we are such a small country, it's easy to impose things, it's easy to change, it's quicker than probably in bigger countries.
Well, you also have, and call me crazy if you want, but so I wonder this actually, because I wondered how this pandemic was going to hit a country like India, where, well, I'm wondering a couple of things, because we were talking about how it's important to have your energy centered first. And I think it's sort of, you need to put your oxygen mask on first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in America, because we're such a young country, young culture, and this the whole place was founded on this ideal of freedom, which obviously isn't true, or hasn't really worked out the way it's supposed to. But
and started with taking away land that wasn't owned. So that's like a strange fundament.
Yeah, we're like a young country of thieves. Or
yeah.
But still, the places where infections are rising, I feel like there's a pent up energy, and there's an energy of I gotta get out. I gotta get out because I don't want to go in. And I'm feeling like that's the biggest problem, is the discomfort with going in. But if you don't go in, you can't heal anything out there. That's kind of how I feel it. And I feel it's related. So the COVID issue and Black Lives Matter are very related issues. They're both asking us to go within. Mm-hmm. And not just like, okay, first it was go within your house, right? Go within your soul. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you really believe? Do you really believe that people are created equal? Because that's what it says right here in our little Constitution. Mm-hmm. All men are created equal. And don't get me started about what that says about women. But we have never treated people that way. And maybe it's time to go within and look at ourselves and say, wow, how have I been a part of this? And now what do I want to do? But you can't do it if you just run outside screaming and shouting and, protesting, but not taking any kind of like appropriate action. That starts with going in, right?
And protesting and stand by this movement and like, let's stand by the Black community and say, I'm fully behind you, please educate me, I will also do my part. Of course, that's the right thing to do, because that's what you need to do. But it's also exactly what you say, and it's not about now the pandemic, but it started with the pandemic, or about Black Lives Matter. It's more about what does it do to you if you are, and for the pandemic, it was the first time that you couldn't go out and, keep yourself busy with other stuff. So you had to sit tight. And some of us were fortunate enough to be able to sit tight. And then there's a whole other story that, especially from the Black community, people were not able to stay at home and had to go out. That's why they have been hit from the pandemic more than others. But not talking about that, just the issue of sitting alone, being at home, not going to restaurants, cinemas, parties, whatsoever, just sitting with yourself. If that's uncomfortable, wow, this is the time to start to go within and look at where you are in the process of your soul work and your soul, giving your soul time to really reflect on where you are right now. Because if it feels uncomfortable to be with you, you will never, ever be able to live a meaningful life or a happy life. It's different if you think it makes me happy to be able to go outside and have a party, go to the cinema, meet with friends. That's all great, and it's great to do if you do that. If you can do that while you already feel very happy within yourself or happy within yourself. But if you have to do that just to get away from who you truly are, or not knowing who you truly are, or having so much rubbish or baggage that you carry around with you and haven't looked at and added in a lifetime, if you can't sit with yourself, it's a time to look. And of course, that's what 2020 shows us. It's like time to reflect, to look, to sit, and to have these uncomfortable feelings. And then, in Black Lives Matters, uncomfortable inner dialogue and dialogue with others. That is a part of healing, is that some parts must be uncomfortable. Otherwise you wouldn't heal and wouldn't start to look at it. But then if you do, the joy it brings, it's just miraculous. And it's so rewarding. Every time I see someone, and I think that's like if I work with someone and they come to a point where they have either a aha kind of a breakthrough, or if they see things from another perspective, if I could help them see their own lives or their own action from another perspective, if I see how they feel, that joy, that is like that's my biggest reward. That's what I love about it. And I think people can be afraid if everything looks like a whole bunch of mess, and that you added to your backpack that you were carrying around from your childhood, from everything that influenced you. But when you start to unpack and really look at the stuff and heal instead of throwing away or just try to suppress, that is just such a healing and rewarding and joyful moment. And it can look scary, because may life have told you and you've seen other people to suppress instead of look at it. And can't we take that as a metaphor as well? But suppression is not what's healing, and it's not what makes your life joyful. And staying at home and giving yourself that time is also a gift. I mean, I know I don't want to, the pandemic is real and it's horrible. It costed so many lives already. And it was very upsetting to see when the outbreak started in Europe and especially in Italy. I don't know if you saw the pictures there, what was going on, but it was horrifying. But everything, however horrifying it is, it also is a chance. And I think that time is definitely a chance to really look at where you are at life and who you are. And I think that's why so many people actually feel that pull now, that they want change. They don't really know yet what, but they do know that their life can't go on like that, or they don't want to go on like that. They have that feeling, that shiftiness right now. And it's also a great, great gift to give yourself, invest in that, invest energy on all levels in your in yourself to go about the next part of your life with a very different attitude to it, which is of course inclusiveness of everyone and everything. It's nature. I mean, of course, now it's Black Lives Matter, and it has been for the last 400 years, and it should be. And it shouldn't even be at this point of our life. It shouldn't even be a discussion, because it should be normality. And it should be normality for women. It should be normality for treating animals with respect. It should be treating nature with respect. It's just a lot of reflection that we have to do as humans and as a community. Mm. But it's also a chance. It's a chance for real change.
Yeah.
It's sad that it had to come like that, but it's always good to well, I tend to see things in a more positive way than in a negative way, or at least I try to always find what can I learn from that? Well, there is a lot of sadness and there is a lot of upset, but it must have also a chance in this. And it also must have a teaching for us in this. And it also has to have a gift in it. So the gift of really looking inside your soul and changing what is off, instead of, busying yourself with outside stuff.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to be one of the biggest changes into the future is the businesses and the work that is both meaningful and valuable are going to change. I mean, I keep thinking teachers are going to be at a different level. We are going to look at teachers very differently. I think we're going to look at healthcare workers very differently. We're going to look at delivery people very different. We're looking and we're noticing what's really important, what's really necessary here. Because is anyone thinking about investment bankers? I'm not. People like playing with making money off of money and playing with like illusionary financial instruments. No, like, please tell me what you're actually doing, and how is your work healing for the world? And we're super, we're so interrelated, and I love the way it's all being exposed.
It is, and
love
as you say, bringing value back to who really is the backbone of our society, like those essential workers that have been carrying their work through fear, through panic, through everything. And I mean, let's also address they had to do that also because they're the ones who were least paid and needed the money most, because they probably couldn't save that much because they earned that little.
And also because they're being charged 20% interest on their credit cards. I mean, that is robbery. We're letting financial institutions rob people, and the people who can least afford it are being robbed the most.
We don't have that here in Switzerland. I don't know how that works. I didn't know, but I do know that you can charge your credit card in America here after 1 month. You can't charge it more. So if you're going into the minus, I think it's a law. I guess that's why they can't do it. So you have, each month you pay your credit card debt.
You have to pay off the whole card every month?
Yes, and if you can't, you can't put any more on it. That's why they don't want people to go into financial despair. That's how they do it. I don't know if it's a law. I really have to say I don't know that, but it's how it works. And even if you have a big allowance, if you're not, you can have a big allowance, but you need to pay every month. You need to pay the full credit card. It's a whole other system.
Like American Express behaves that way, although they've changed because they have other plans now so that you can pay over time. But no, there are American credit cards where, they'll lure you in and say there's 0% interest for this amount of time. And then if you go this amount of time, they backdate all of it and charge you 20% interest on the whole thing. And then now you can't catch up. Like
Yeah.
it's insane. And I don't know why or how we've been letting people get away with it, but people are getting rich because of it, obviously. I mean,
Yeah. Now I must be a law because no credit card does that different than what I just said. It's
no
all
credit card in Switzerland does it
we
different.
have American Express here.
This
I
is
think,
why you guys are the bankers of the world.
well, I know that they say, but believe me, I'm not happy with what the bankers did in the past as well. But uh, you know, we gave people a loophole to hide their taxes and bring their money in.
Same
People
here.
now go to Singapore, and you know, you have a tax haven now in America, don't you? You have them yourself. But people were tending to go to Switzerland also because it seems such a safe country. And I think now with the pandemic, Forbes just said that like where to live with COVID-19 now, Switzerland was number one because of the stable economy, because of how, you know, how they reacted here, because of how they had it under control. Somebody sent me that list. So yes, but I do believe that you shouldn't be able, and you shouldn't make money of other people's
Suffering.
hide the taxes. Yeah. So, but it stopped. They changed the law. People go now to other places. You know, I don't think they stopped doing that. It's just they don't do it in Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, and it's, you know, we have a bigger ship over here, and 8 million people. I mean, I think New York City has 10 million people. So it's,
Yes, I know. And it's that. I mean, oftentimes people come here also from America and enjoying the beauty of Switzerland, and there is so much to enjoy here. But of course, it's easier to run such a small country. It would be beautiful to, and it's not always easy. I guess here, you know, we have problems too, but it's much easier to, and you can overlook so much more. I mean, it's just. But then I also think we have a democracy where people really are involved. That's a reason why we are not in part of the EU, because people do not want to give that up. And we really form our own laws. We go and vote 4 or 5 times a year, where they bring motions and laws and they put it in front of the public, and you either say yes to that or no. And it was funny, a couple of years ago, they brought the motion that they bring it back now differently, but they wanted men to have like like the women can take out time for childcare when they give birth. Now the men should have that possibility too. And they bring it back for 2 weeks now. And I think that will be going through, and people are totally okay with that and think, you know, men should stay at home for 2 weeks and it should be paid. That's totally okay. But they want to bring it back for 3 months or something. And it got voted down. So it wasn't that, so people really have to think here about, okay, if I say yes to that, even though I would like to be a dad and like to stay at home for 3 months getting paid, what does that mean for a small company that I work for? Will they be able to keep me? Will that be making my work onshore, and so on? So people here are more involved with thinking about the bigger pictures themselves as well as the bigger picture. And I think that's what's, and then they vote for it, and then that's going to be the law. So that's, I think, a part of why people like to see Switzerland as a good place to live. I think it's because the whole community actually has a saying in how we live. And that's what people, of course, find. Sometimes, you know, the voting will go against what you personally voted, but because there is so much of it.
Individuals feel more empowered. It
Yes.
sounds like.
Yes, and
There
there's
are a
so
lot of
much
people here that feel like, you know, why vote? It doesn't matter. There's a lot of that here.
For you, it's even more important because you know, you can only vote every 4 years, or I guess Congress, and probably every 2 years. But that's going to be the main thing that you have to do. If you can go and vote, I mean, we don't vote parliament every few months. We vote on the actual laws. We change our government every 4 years. We have a big voting going on, and we don't choose our leader like you do. You vote for your leader, for your president. We vote for the ones who actually then vote for the president. So, and they actually asked us to change that, if we want to change that, because it was a motion that they brought forward. And people said, no, we don't. We believe in our system, because what happens now is we have like 7 presidents instead of 1. And 7, of course, that they always have the ability to vote something down or not, or say yes to something. So they always have a majority if it's several people. So the people who vote for them is like similar to your Senate or your House. We have 2 chambers as well. So they can actually bring forward people that they think should be in this 7 people circle who are represented like a president in your case. And those have worked together and know how they function, know how flexible they are, know how much they can do bipartisan work, and that's how they get chosen. So the Swiss people said, look, we could vote for those 7, but we don't want, because we want you all to work together and do that in a positive way. So that's why you should choose them. But we choose you. If you're not happy with you, then you get out. But so I think it's a good system, and we of course have much more parties than you have. I mean, probably not, but like they are more powerful. All of them are more balanced. We have from right to left to green to we have everything, and most of them are in those 7 people represent those parties.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they have to always be bipartisan.
Wow. So
And
yeah, you're not just limited to 2.
Oh,
right?
no.
I mean, I know technically we have more, but we don't.
No. We have 2 green parties. One is green, but rather on the left. And one is green, but also says we want the economy to work. But we want to work it with the economy being green, like taking care of the environment. So that's a very popular party in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Then we have 2 parties on the righter side, not like in a way of right, meaning anti-immigration or anything, but meaning like more for, well, one could be potentially seen as that, and I think they have definitely anti-immigration thoughts, but then there is one on the right side, and they are just entrepreneurs, similar to the Green Party that is for entrepreneurs, but just green.
So basically less government is what
Yeah, but like yes, I know, but since I know how less or how much government you have, I think we can't even compare that to Europe. And you, having lived in Europe, know that what we think is right for everyone, and everybody should have free education here in Switzerland. It's free study. You pay $1,000, I think, per year, not per semester, for going to the university. Including books and everything. So free education, we think, is a must here in Europe, because it's how you build your wealth in the future, by educating everybody and giving
the only thing that you can give a person that can never be taken away. Yes.
And you can't just educate the ones who can afford it, because those don't necessarily have to be the smartest. So you want to give the chance to everybody that you can really have in the future pillars of the smartest people being able to innovate, to lead, to, you don't want to just put that on one kind of, the rich ones who can afford to do that.
And like we were saying, a lot of the most brilliant things come out of adversity.
Yes, of course.
Actually, somebody with really challenging background situation that might be the greatest potential for the future because it
Exactly.
really solves a problem.
Exactly, exactly. So we also find it necessary in the whole of Europe that everybody has a healthcare. Um, how do you say that? Just healthcare. Everybody has healthcare,
Yeah.
and we don't think of that as being left or being. That's just normal.
Yeah.
That's how we want to function as a society.
I don't
And
have any. I don't have it here because it's too expensive. So
it's crazy.
I trust myself to take care of myself. And yes, it could totally bankrupt me.
Yeah.
And I do it anyway. And I know I'm not alone. I mean, my parents think I'm nuts, but
Yeah.
um,
I mean, it is sad that, you know, a system forces you to make those decisions, right? Because it should be like, well, I'm European and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to weigh into that discussion, but it's just where I come from and where I live.
yeah.
That's what we think. And nobody on the far right, even like the far right, will ever question that. Like nobody ever said, oh, you shouldn't get everybody an education, or, oh, we shouldn't have healthcare for everyone. That's not a discussion here, because this is how we
It's a
all
basic
agree.
value. Yeah.
Yes. And so yeah, it's diverse. And I think it's interesting to have those different kind of parties, from the far left to the far right, to everything in between, to the ones who stand up for the environment. Everybody has to work together and find a way to work together. And I think that makes also represents more of us. Like some will vote, of course, for the far left, for the far right, for the middle, for the Green Party, and people will feel represented if they have to come together and have a consensus. And even if I dislike some of the politicians, I can acknowledge that some of their thoughts have also helped shape where we are right now. And I think that you have to be flexible yourself, because many times that a law comes in front of the voting, you go and vote, you have maybe 4 times a year. Sometimes you will be agreeing with that, sometimes you disagree, but you learn to live with that and learn to embrace, okay, that's not going the way I like, but what can I do with this decision now? How can I live with that decision? Makes you more flexible.
Mm.
And I think that's when you find it easier to find that consensus. And I think that's why living together and being open to everybody, and it's also like, isn't it so that if you have 2 parties, then you tend to agree with that one party or that other, and then it's very difficult to find consensus in that. Maybe sometimes being in that party, you're agreeing with parts of what this party says, or part of the people in this party, and you could find agreement within. And
Right.
and I think if you have so many parties and they have to work together, you also learn as a citizen to agree with your neighbors and your friends on things that you may disagree, but you have to find a way. I think it's healthy to
Yeah.
have those discussions in a more diverse way.
You remind me of all the reasons I miss Europe.
Oh, I'm sorry. And they are difficult things here too. Don't think it's just.
I
But
know, I know, I know.
but
I have
but
friends from lots of different countries, and my my Swedish friend down the road, she has a school called the Green School.
oh wow.
Such a beautiful concept, and it's about how can we educate children to want to keep the planet green and beautiful, and
That is
like
beautiful.
that should be the education of everyone, right?
Yes. Well, when did she start, and how did she start? That sounds
Started
so.
about 20 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah, she's been doing it a long time, 25 maybe.
yeah,
Um, yeah, she's doing amazing things. She's bringing it online, or
brilliant.
has been. And she works with very, very young children. She also teaches yoga. She has equine therapy. She lives on a farm, so she's also working with the farm and the animals to teach the humans how to be kind and considerate. And
That's what I said about the empathy, not just for us humans, but for nature and
Yeah.
animals in the same
Well, and
way.
it's so easy to start by teaching a child. You start with, well, would you do that to, this horse that you love, or this, sheep that you love? If you treat them kindly, well, don't you think you should treat Johnny the same way?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
It's a great way to teach, just by example with kids.
I love that. And I think Sweden especially has had in Europe a leading role um, in also women empowerment. I don't know if she ever told you that, but women would go back to work and had then places where they could have their children, and they were looked up from the state. The state would pay for that, so they had like nurseries 30 years ago or something. So they were very innovative and giving women space to develop and to find a path between parenting and career early on, when nobody was thinking about that in Europe. So and they're innovative with a lot of things in Sweden. I've never been to Sweden. How sad is that? It would be so close, but I've never been to. I tend to go back and back and back to England because I love it so much, and then to the south, where I enjoy. And of course, it's so easy. Like in 2 hours, or in 3 hours from everywhere in Switzerland, you're in another country. You can go to France, Italy, Germany, Austria within 2 hours, two and
Yeah,
a half hours. So
that's
it's
beautiful.
easy to travel than those countries where you're closest to. But I would love to go to Sweden. I love Lindgren. Did you hear about Pippi Longstocking? The
The what?
story Pippi Longstocking
Oh,
or
yeah.
Michael?
Actually, my friend calls herself that sometimes because she wears her braids, and she sort of, she dresses like Pippi, and
Yeah, I love that. Lindgren. She's the author of Pippi and also other books that I love to you know read to my children, and we watch the movies, and it's just yeah.
beautiful. Well, I'm sure this is probably getting quite long. I can't say exactly because I had it open before I started recording, but
I think
um,
1.5 hours.
that's all right. Yeah, we've done that before. So are you going to do another retreat anytime soon? Are you thinking about it?
I mean, at the moment, like in
You
Europe,
can't plan
Switzerland
anything.
is different, but England, they just still try to open up, and it's not the time to travel. However, I do think, I mean, of course, I did think about how can you bring a retreat online, but it's also so intense. Those 4 days were so intense for the women there. It's difficult to have that. It's difficult to have that while you still live at home and you cook and you work maybe, or um, even a weekend would be. I think it could be more draining than it actually could be beneficial. So I was thinking about bringing that online more as a platform for the moment. And I definitely will bring back retreats in person, hopefully in a space where we can really do the best of keeping up that energy. But I think I have two things that I was just approached a lot. One thing was people kept asking me about vivid dreams, about having flashbacks or seeing dangerous things. And I think it has to do with the times we're living in, and the things we see on TV. So people have like visions of what could come, and it scares them. So I'm thinking of creating a place, a space where people who had that experience, I can teach them how to go in there without fear and looking at whatever they saw, but also seeing the big picture around it. Because sometimes people just see like visionary stuff, like what could potentially happen in the future, and they get scared. But I could teach them how to get there and look at that and find a way to see the bigger picture behind that, whatever scared them. So I think that could be a part, and I'm thinking about that. And then the thing that I'm actually working on is called Elevate, and it's about elevating your life and your business, or and whatever you want to elevate. And of course, best would be elevate everything. So you're uplifted in every possible way. And that's going to be, I'm thinking about bringing just a handful of women together now that reached out and really find that shift they feel and that calling they have, that pull they feel, that they can bring that into perspective and go with them through those steps, and then making a course of that in the future. So because I feel the need that people really want it now, but I'm ready I know what to teach, but I'm not ready in materials or videos or anything. So I was thinking about that. And I'm also having to go back to an operation. I had one in February, just before the pandemic hit. I had a foot operation, and then I will have another one in mid-August. And I think just providing space would be something that could be done now, because some people really need it and feel that they want to change and want to shift right now, but then it could be later on be made into a course. And of course, before we talked about that retreat and that center, but that goes for visually as well as physically, a place where people can come and rest there, like have a wellness day for their soul. That's definitely my vision, like creating the platform where people really have all kinds of free material where they can download and what they can engage with. And then they can take courses, they can be led by coaches, and just try to look at and heal those things that they carry on in their back package, and just unpack and give them different kind of tools how to do that. And bringing other people to teach that would be lovely too. So yeah, that's sort of the bigger vision.
Probably 15 years ago, someone came to me and said, if I gave you, I forgot what he said, 5 million, if I gave you $5 million or $10 million, what would you do with it? And only one thing came to my mind, but I kept trying to come up with something else. I kept trying to come up with a better answer, right? But only one thing came to my mind. I said I would create a hotel for women that was sort of what you've just described. And over the years, over 15 years. Oh, and I said, oh, and by the way, I'm going to need 50 million, like minimum.
Yeah, 5's not enough.
Like 5 million, 10's not going to do anything. And so ironically, or whatever, just coincidentally, one of my former clients is actually part of the group that started the W Hotel, the Starwood Group. And I always thought W, like that should be, that they should just remake that whole thing. And I had this idea of a hotel for women that was a place of community, mentorship, and also random interactions like this. Like you can just go there and you know that every person who goes is this like person who wants to meet other people or who wants to help in some way. And like I was imagining Jane Fonda sitting down next to like whoever just showed up, right? And this bringing together of people. And for me, it was like I never felt like I had a mentor when I was a young woman. I just couldn't look at the only person I could look to was Madonna, because I thought, I want to have that. I want to have that amount of guts to just be who I am, and, don't care what you think of me. I'm just going to be me.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing. But the only, role models out there were people like Barbara Walters. And I'm like, I don't relate to that. I don't connect to that. She was,
I don't know,
generation and a half older than I was. I was looking for somebody young, and also Barbara was playing in a man's world, right? She was.
What did she? I don't know.
Oh, so she was a newscaster, like anchor,
okay,
news
like
anchor woman. I want to say the first anchor woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong. I just picked a random person, but a person who was visible, female, leader, but not relatable to me. I mean, now there are loads and loads of
Mhm.
women, like
Yeah.
role models and things like that. And I mean, frankly, this retreat center, it doesn't have to be just for women, but what I was looking for, and not just for women and not just for people who identify as women, but literally could be anyone. But it's like a different kind of thing, like a consciousness hotel or something.
That's what I'm looking like. That's what I'm working for the last, I guess, 8 to 10 years. I'm perfecting that. Isn't that
But
funny?
I have to say, I have probably met 100 people talking about this same thing. And some people have built one here and a little one there. And I'm like, what if it was a network? Like, what if it's literally a chain? I mean,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like a web. And, you
It
know,
needs them all over the place. It needs them all over the place. And I think it's what you said. I think probably 15 years ago when you thought about a hotel for women, I mean, we may have to clarify that. And I think I know I can relate to where that could come from. But I think as women, like thinking back 15 years ago, you probably thought you would feel safer in a place where you only meet women. And
yeah.
I can totally relate to that. Was before Me Too. That was, you know, when we started to talk about that. But that's something that maybe if you hear that now and you think, so somebody who listens to that think, why do they want a hotel for women? You have to be a woman to understand that, or an older woman, like to understand that, because that's that you wanted to have a safe place.
I wanted a safe, supportive place with mentors.
Yeah, where you can be
Specifically
yourself.
female mentors. Now I'm in a place where I could be that mentor. So I'm not looking for the same.
Yeah, thing anymore. But it's in senses that what was missing. We always wish, you know, if somebody says I have 10 millions here, what do you do with that? You want to create something that you wish would exist, that you miss personally. You know, Mike, if I should tell you my vision, if it's not too much time, I think it's nearly nearly 1.5 hours now. But the vision would be a place, and I probably have to tell you how I came about to this last place where we had it in Goodestone. I was traveling with Louis and my husband, and we were in England, and we were bringing Louis to Cambridge because he was learning English there in a gap year. And so we wanted to, because he was very young, he was 16, I think. Well, very young for Swiss guys to go off to learn languages. Maybe it's not young in a bigger context, but we felt he was young, and he was young in his who he was. But we wanted to make sure that he feels comfortable there, and we stayed there for a week. So he would already live in a family, he would go to school, but we would be there as a support net. And the week before we traveled, and traveling with my boys is always costing energy as well, because everybody is like lively and everybody has ideas, and I enjoy that. There is no much time for me to sit and meditate. So we went to Canterbury, to the cathedral in Canterbury, and I told them, can you please just leave me for 10 minutes, because day and night I'm with them and I find no time to meditate. So, you know, after a few days I said, can you please leave me alone? I'll sit here in this cathedral and would love to meditate. And it was like I would see them like walking past, looking in. I was in sort of, oh my God, give me a break. I couldn't even start because I felt like, oh. Anyway, I said, okay, I don't have the time to meditate. I don't know why I wanted to come to Kent, nor had the feeling I want to come to Kent, because I've never traveled there before. But move me there, show me. So we went into the car. That's what I sort of put out in the universe. I went into the car and we started to drive, and my husband was giving in the next address, and we would leave Kent. Before we started the journey, I really knew I had to go to Kent anyway. So we would come over very strange. First it was small roads. They got smaller and smaller. It was fields at the end. I was like, what? where is it taking us? That's not like, and we found out later that instead of the quickest road, he put in the nearest. So we would go over small villages and from field to field. And I had a feeling we had to stop there, and it was Goodnestone. And actually, it was somebody in a pub who said, you have to go and look at this in this house because, you know, Jane Austen lived there. She spent her holidays there. Her brother lived there. And he thought, oh, go, that is actually interesting. And so we went there, and it was just like drawing me in because it has such an amazing energy. And there's crazy stuff happening after that when we were at the retreat, which was really, really brilliant. But it just, I listened to my intuition and I followed that. But it's not my home, and it's not like they have a lot of weddings, and I don't think I would go back there, but it's what I imagined would be a place, and it doesn't have to be a place like that, but an ancient place, an older place, definitely where the energy, that would be my first kind of criterion that I would like to have, so that there is a really amazing energy, and potentially an amazing energy gives everybody who might even be not very intuitive or not very used to working with energy, you can tap in there. There are places in this world where you can just tap in, and it's just so easy. And I would imagine that, you know, these old ancient houses have walled gardens, organic food, to be able to have really real conversations with trust, move forward, heal the past, and give yourself the space there for a week or however long it should be, that you can dive into your true self and emerge with having healed parts of your past, or maybe even, you know, most parts of your past, but also having all the tools that you need to move forward from that place onwards. To be able to meet interesting women and men, to have conversations, to live in a place where you're conscious of nature, conscious of the food that you eat, conscious of how to treat each other, and to expand and just give your soul a break. And do that in a beautiful environment, and do that for yourself. Because then going back, if you give yourself that time, it could be a week, it could be like, you can achieve a lot in 4 days. To go back into your life and then be the leading light, either in your company or for others in your community, in your work in a big corporate position, just to be the thoughtful leader. That would be amazing. So yes, let's put that out. And till that, there is a variation of just having that online, creating, because you can take that and say, let's create at least a platform where we have all this, where we inform about this, where we give you the space, where you are able to be yourself, and give you that space online. That's possible too. Of course, I can, after giving that retreat, I felt like there is so much. And I may say that, I hope Sarah doesn't mind. Sarah was at the retreat. We talked about her. And she said, I can't remember now what exactly she said, but she said after that time together, she has tried to heal and change or bring some change into her life for so many years. And she said, well, she kind of said, probably, I can't fucking believe you did that in 4 days. And it wasn't me who did that, it was her. But there was the tools, and there was the environment that this actually could happen. And of course, it was the pre-work she'd done, for the last 10 years that she did. It's always, we're involving, and everything that we do has a layer of that healing that happens in the end. So it wasn't me, but it was just amazing to see, if you concentrate and give yourself 4 days, amazing things can happen.
Yeah.
So
And if you're with the right mirror, she uses mirror brand. And I do a lot of the same work that she does. And I say this all the time that, people think I'm some sort of magician photographer. I'm like, no, it's the energy of two people doing their magic in the same space. And then, yeah, you come up with a thing. It looks like a product, or it looks like a photograph, or it looks like a result. But that wasn't, the magic was this. The magic isn't the result, it's the process.
the
And
process we got there.
and it takes a certain level of strength and energy and vulnerability as strength to allow you to come to the process in the first place. So when people come to me, as if I've had people say to me, I know I'm not ready for you.
Yeah.
Like they're a little bit scared of me, and I'm like, it's okay. Like you come when you're ready to come, because I'm not going to, on the one hand, I do hold people's hand, but you know what I mean? I'm not going to coddle you, and I'm not going to make it all easy. I will meet you where you are and show you something about yourself that makes you realize you weren't this, you were this all along. That's the point. That's what you did. You showed her herself in a way that she already had and wasn't seeing. And you tinkered a little in your magic space in the middle. I get it. I mean, that's my friend Amy does the same thing. And excuse me, she has talked about, do you really need to create a center for what you're talking about? I mean, couldn't it be a virtual space? And it was the first time I thought of it that way. And I thought, oh yeah, of course, it doesn't have to be, because the idea of actually building a hotel or whatever, that's exhausting to me.
Yes, of course. But then I think both realities have their own
Yes. Energy, I think.
Energy, but also their own importance. I think accessible for many people all over the world, giving space to meet, giving, whatever you want to give in that hotel space in the virtual situation can be already great healing. It can be interesting, mentorships can happen. That's all very well. And I think that could work wonderfully and is very inspiring. And then having a place just gives another layer to that.
Yes.
And I think the people who want to dive deeper, who want to maybe involve quicker or have a feeling that personal, and I think it's important to, and maybe it could even be like, as you said, it would be lovely to have that all over the world, being a chain. It could even be like a chain in different cities or countries, to have that meeting point. And it doesn't have to be first a hotel. It could be just meeting once a month. And then, those ladies and mentors and change makers could meet physically. I think especially after the pandemic, I think physical meeting, also in this very fast paced world, I think it just gives you something different.
I actually think that as a result of the pandemic, retreat centers are going to be more valuable than ever, because people are going to say, wait, I actually really need human connection and touch and, massage and everything physical. The value has just gone skyrocket.
Yeah.
So I love that.
So I think I love the idea.
We're on it. We're just reinforcing the message, and we want it
to. Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, anyone who's watched this long gets a special gold star.
So sorry for them.
Don't be sorry. Like it was
amazing.
It just is going to exist out there for time.
Exactly. Thank you.
Someone's going to look back one day and say, oh, those two visionary women.
They met for the first time and had such a long chat.
Exactly. I love it. Carollyne, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we keep in touch. That was lovely.
We will. We'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be back.
We'll be back. Watch out, people.
Have a lovely day. I guess I have an evening.
Day here, evening there.
Thank you. Bye bye. It was lovely to meet you. Thank you.